what happens when I don't do pre-tests.
Oh, you should have done it so often that it should work.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't catch that, so but I caught it a hair late there. It'll be alright. So it's not like we're late or anything. So. What's up, Seeker?
Hey, hey. That'd be me.
That's right. Yeah, I'm like brain dead today.
Yeah, no worries, man. No worries.
I'm thinking, who am I? Oh my gosh, I'm confusing you. I'm confusing that with Greg, who is, oh my God, Greg Ringler. What is? I'll know it when I see it. I just, oh my gosh, I'm so. Well, at least you're on there. Hopefully everyone's good. Can you hear us? No, it's on there and sound test, sound test.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. There, Dor. Hey, what's up, Dor?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dor. Grimmett ahead tonight.
Thank you very much. Crazy about what, Nixel? What's crazy? How far things have come? Elaborate, man.
All the tech, Jay.
Hey, dude, you know, I gotta stay ahead of the curve here, man. I gotta keep on pumping it out, pumping out the content. Everyone's doing well tonight.
Oh yeah, I meant to thank you again, Jay, for giving me the opportunity.
Oh yeah.
For the weekend, especially since my players have been emailing me and contacting me for this weekend, so everyone seems to be looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, looking forward to this discussion, and having you with us on the show will be awesome.
And that's going to be awesome too. Yeah, this will be fun.
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely, absolutely. Yeah, hey, you know, Nixel, I always say that what's my next challenge? You know, so I keep on challenging myself. The con was another challenge, you know, so that's the way I look at it. So you'll see popping up in here something that it's really bizarre when I say that the arena on this ad doesn't look 10 times as good as ours. Yeah.
I'm so looking forward to that, Jay.
Oh, dude, it's gonna be fun. Everyone's guaranteed 2 fights, so it's not like it's gonna be a one and done like the joust. So everyone's guaranteed to be in 2 combats. Casey, you're too early, Casey. Too early.
Yeah, the Joust I think was the best gaming stream so far, and I think this one will be, if it's only half as good, it'll be fantastic.
I think, well, Tim's, Tim with his ads that he from the community is even funnier.
That will add so much flavor to it that it will make it fantastic.
So I hate to tell you this, Casey, but the odds makers has Garn out of 20 competitors seeded 20th. Last.
Oh, underdog.
Everyone loves
he's
an
on the
underdog.
priest he's on the priest table.
Yeah, but
Oh,
everyone
man.
loves an
He's on
underdog.
the card table to hit.
Oh man.
Hey, Gar. Hey, thanks, Eldeval. Thank you very much. Oh, man. I'm just busting. I made that up right now, Casey, just to get a rise out of you. Because that's fun.
Oh, that's a shame.
But
I'm just gonna put 20 on.
Yeah, because I imagine the odds for Casey for Garn winning would be like 100 to 1. I mean, I just think...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, did you have an arena in the city map for Altamir already?
Oh yeah, we had it. We had
Okay,
it
cool.
an area allocated for it. Yeah, that
Yes,
and the
you knew
jousting
it was
area.
in going to be there. So this
Yes,
is
yes,
one day.
absolutely.
Awesome. Yep.
Especially, and to be honest, when we were looking for a second 3D print company, you know, because Gamescape's great, but Jeremy's one-man show. Oh, look at that! Thanks, Guild Superior. And when we saw what they were coming out, we were like, "This is the group," and it was, you know, this is the group we want to partner with. And so, and here's the thing: in addition to all the other giveaways, Infinite Dimensions is giving out 2 full STL packs up for the arena free during that as well for 3D printers. Yes, so we're going to be giving those away too. I just got that. I got that found out yesterday. And speaking of that, hype train already. Yes.
Yes. Awesome. We haven't even.
I'm not going to complain.
So.
I'm not going to complain. There we go. We just went over level 1 already. Wow. Hey, what's up there, Toriano? I know that Blue Box is going to be finishing up in a little bit, and we got a couple minutes still. 7:51. Of course not, Black Knight. It pales in comparison to anything from the Great Kingdom. But if you look at the western side of the map, you know, where all the Stooges live in the Sheldamar Valley, it's not bad. That was awesome, Gary. Tim's character, Reginald's looking for revenge, too, because, I mean, he got eliminated first round in the joust. Tim's gonna be hysterical. So, looking really forward to it. Whew. Let's see here. So, do my booster shot to Alrighty, entry screen, and it's like how do you prepare for Battle Royale like that? You're gonna see, Dave. You'll see. I have it all worked out. It's interesting. Nixel, yeah. Any new terrain? Sit tight. I'll throw it up right away. We'll come on a couple minutes early, and I'll throw it on. Yeah, I guess you haven't seen the posts recently, man. Oh my gosh. It's crazy. And where do you see Bill is planning something for the Halloween special show we do, and of course it'll involve the Overlord, and he's got some new terrain coming with that too. So, thank you, Clever. And the good thing is that I own the rights to it. So, hey, Mike, good to see you, Mike. We're just talking about your Overlord and what we're doing for Halloween. Bill's got some new terrain he's working on. It's his next project. So we're gonna come on like at 7:57. So I can show. I'll show some of the wiki stuff there. So let's switch screens here. Thanks for that level 1 hype train right off the bat. We had 3 resubs that did it. So very cool. Tonight the Flan. Oh no! There's Canadian Pub 521. Boom, boom, boom. Wow. Casey, we gotta talk to the Naz and see if we can do Saturday. All right? You gotta send him a message. All right? We gotta send him a message to see if he can play in Saturday's game. I know because he just signed up for your Sunday. I know you gotta cancel it. There's not enough sign-ups. Thank you. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Big Jim. The Flan. I didn't know what to put up picture-wise, so I just put books up tonight. References. Yes, got my map ready to go. Tim, I'll get you on that Altamira. They flew. It's going to be epic this weekend. Oh, look at that. Look at that jab. From Gary. Garn should just... He can't have... Don't make Garn cry there, Black Knight. That's not nice. Here, let's do this now so Casey feels satiated.
The trash talk's getting worse.
It's going to be awesome. There we go. CSL Entertainment $25 gift certificate is up. We may add something to that. Flan in the can. All right, there we come. It's 7:56. We're coming on early. Early's good, right? No, Isak is got a grudge match. Isak's already in a fight that he caused from his lack of proper decorum. So I can always blame it's great being able to blame Casey for stuff, which makes it even more fun. Good evening, everyone. I'm JK Lorcazumba. Well, we got our last stream before Virtual Greyhawk Con. As everyone knows, tomorrow night I got a back to school night, so no regular Thursday night game. So, well, tonight's this will be a great Legends and Lore, and with me as always is Greyhawk Mike Bridges, the great Anna Meyer, and a special guest. Les, this is your first time on, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yes, we got Leslie Reno, Oblivion Seeker. You may know him in Discord, a Flan expert. Welcome.
I wouldn't go that far, but hey.
Oh yes.
Thank you so much for having me, Jay.
Well, it's pleasure's ours. I mean, this is going to be a great discussion as we bounce around between the Soul and the Iridians and the Bacaloonish. We really want to touch on the Flan. So, yeah, Cold. I can't, man. Real life son father stuff trumps. But by the way, so here, this is why too. It's kind of hard to do an adventure when I had to do all this, right? So here we go, and this is for Nixel. But I had to put this all on the map somewhere, so sorry to interrupt the flow here. I'm going to hit a wrong button. I knew it. I hit a wrong button already. We don't want to see Tim move a tongue there, do we? And look, I hit another wrong button. I'm a little off tonight, everyone. It's just figuring out which buttons are which. So here you go. Here it comes. Here comes here's the arena done on the table. Right here's the entire table. I can't set this up overnight, so I had to get it done. So that's another reason why, so there's the arena with the Free City of Altamira, the downtown area in the background, so there you go. And that's what we're going to be, doing here, with stands and what were you talking about there, Gary? Look, there's an Aqua Legia or something there that builds vendor right on the outside of the wall here. So yeah, you're going to see a lot of this fun stuff. And look, there's people in the arena watching already. And here is the big fight going on inside. It's a grudge match. I place Isak fighting the Grand Duelist Gilliam because of the slight and insult in there. Now, there should be blood all over the place, the Isaks, but I can't do that with figures. So that is that's just a setup I had placed for it so far. So there you go. So that's what we're looking forward to on Saturday, and it's already set up, and that's another reason why I can't have a game on Thursday. So back to the Flan, right? We'll talk about Greyhawk at the end. The giveaway from CSL Entertainment is all ready to go. You can sign up for that already. Thank you already for the level 3 hype train. That's awesome. So yes, Enoch, you're back in too. You're in. You're taking Josh Death Dealer now because he's been passed around to 3 people. So you got Josh Death Dealer last entry. So you never know. So Les,
Yes.
synopsis on the Flan. Like, wow. I mean, deep history, right?
Deep history. A history so old that their origins, as opposed to where do they come from, right? They are the first people. They are the people for whom the Flan is named, and they
true.
And many of Greyhawk's greatest villains trace their origins back to the if we buy into later canon, I know Passe Jason Zavada, but if we accept later canon, we have the Flan.
Later.
And of course,
yeah.
Exactly. You have the idea that of all these great villains who come out of that. And I mean, it's just they have a great, rich, and varied history. And then, of course, you also have in certain other traditions, if you were to look at, I believe it was James Jacobs, his Scarlet Tide adventure in Dungeon Magazine makes use of a character who, in his article on the Demonomicon,
Yeah,
his entry on Igwilv actually names the creature that the players are trying to stop in that adventure is actually a former druid.
So that's the Lord of the Scarlet Tide. Is that that adventure?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Okay. That's
The
the one that
actual-
takes place under Narwhal, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Lord of the Scarlet Tide is a druid who fell into the worship of Zugmoy.
Wow. Here's my number one question to you to start
Okay.
off. When did this Flan thing come about in lore? Like, who created it? When? What the thought process between your normal Flan and then the Flan? Like, and can you tell us the difference as well?
Some of this is going to be largely speculation on my part.
That's
right?
okay.
But as far as its origins, it seems to have come about around the time of the Sargent era.
Okay.
And what I take it to mean, I mean, before anything, like an language, is a it's a German prefix. It basically means like the original or the primitive version of something, the earliest version of something. Like an if you're a scholar of religious texts or literature, you may be familiar with the Hamlet, which is the first known version of the Hamlet text.
Oh, okay. I wasn't. Wow. Okay. Cool.
And in this case, what we're talking about with the Flan, I take it to mean that there was a segment within the Flan population which viewed its blood as somehow superior, or as a predecessor to the rest of the Flan race. They viewed themselves as sorcerer kings, from what we can gather from what's written about the various Flan liches and such.
Right.
And they set up obviously different dominions and kingdoms. And you notice that here we find something that's really interesting is that these Flan kingdoms, you don't really find much reference to the old faith. You don't really find much reference to the gods unless they're somehow displaced. It's all about these figures setting themselves up to transcend their mortality, which I think makes for a great villain. The idea of a sorcerer king or despot who just refuses to die, right?
So is that the Flan though does not mean that they're the vile and evil despots. Is that a reference Flan to all the ancient Flan that were in the area? That's my question too. Like, or is it the Flan tend to be the ones that are demon worshippers and because they're so primitive?
I think that some Flan tended towards demon worship, or they could.
Okay.
For reasons, like I said, you have going back to Kuntz, even you have the Dark Druids, right? Yep. Kuntz's The Dark Druids adventure from the 70s featured a group of druids who were reacting against the encroachment of civilization, and their leader, whose name escapes me at the moment, basically founded a group of druids who became devoted to the notion of entropy and started serving Therisdun. And then a second sect split off from them, worshipping Anthraxis. Oh,
they weren't a demon.
Yep. And the idea there seems to be that they were doing it, one could argue, for the right reason. They saw civilization as threatening the forest. They saw it as threatening the land. They saw it as threatening the people. But their reaction then is to take an element of nature, be it disease or be it entropy, and to embrace it in such a way that it becomes an all-consuming thing. And eventually, of course, they become drunk on their own power. They're not the servants of nature. They're in some ways the master of an element of nature. Okay. And I think that's how I see the Flan kind of evil starting to take root within some of the Flan communities. With the Flan, it's very much, if we look at the Flan, and a lot of the stuff seems to be cyclical, right? It's based, various writings seem to draw on Celtic or Native American or steppe cultures. A lot of those cultures tend to be cyclical in their worldview. Okay. you have, even within the Flan calendar, if you look at the Anne Brown's Player's Guide, it gives you that whole idea of different seasons and how the seasons determine different personalities and so forth. There's this idea of nature and a cycle, right? Now, what does someone who longs for immortality or for permanence do? They break cycles.
Okay.
They try to transcend nature too, but for different reasons. They're not trying to preserve anything, except themselves.
Okay.
So that's how I view the difference between these Flan. For whatever reason, many of them seem to have been inclined, at least the ones whose names we know, towards power, domination, and immortality.
Because David Leonard, when he came on a couple weeks ago, I mean, really gave us a great discussion on it, and I was really enthralled by it. He said that there was basically four, and the names. One was like transcended the others and left, but you know, you had the could you go over them again and talk about that real quick, as we're talking about early Flan, and this is pre-Cataclysm, right? Correct? Or is this okay?
Like you have, and I'd have to look at David's article again, because this is, again, it gets into that area. In my campaign, what I tend to do with that kind of information is that before a certain date, everything is speculative. To give you an example of what I'm doing, and not really spoilers, because my players for this in one of my one shots this weekend, God bless their souls, had received a kind of handout, a backstory about this place that they're going to. And what I did was I took another thing from Sargent, Daragor, the god of werewolves.
Oh, nice.
Who Sargent? He only comes up, to my knowledge, in 2 books, on Hallowed Ground and the Monster Mythology book. So, but what I did with him is that I decided that Druids have an affinity for nature. We've already established the precedent of dark Druids with Kuntz and with James Jacobs' adventure. Let's go back and imagine that before, in the long ago time, right, when the Flan first came to the Flaness, although they have no real stories or narratives conveying this, one of them became enamored of the idea of shape-shifting and skin-changing. And he became so interested in his animal nature, but he didn't want to worship the Wolf Lord, right? Not the Lord of normal wolves. No, that's animal. I'm much better than an animal. I want something grander. And he reaches within himself, and something reaches back. Daragor, who's rampaging throughout the lower plains, feared by all sorts of fiends. And he basically winds up starting a cult, which may or may not have included the first werewolves. Either the werewolves came later, or they were drawn to this cult.
Yeah, lycanthropy is not really well explained in Greyhawk.
Exactly. And I wanted to leave it unexplained, but with something touching upon it.
Cool.
So he basically is summoned, and that's how, as per Sargent, Daragor is unleashed on the prime material plane, but Sargent never really explains how or why. To me, the incursion started on Oath, and it started as a result of this desire of a druid to become more than simply someone who could potentially turn into a wolf or control wolves. He wanted to embrace his animal nature and become even godlike, possibly.
So, which adventure is that, by the way, that you're running? I know you have 2 set up.
That'll be the Tomb of Tazbrev Teneb.
Yes, very nice. Very, very nice. So Les is running 2 adventures for us for Virtual Con. I know there's a lot of excitement out there for
and
them.
In the just to summarize the tail end of that, if you'll pardon the pun.
Yeah, go for it.
Tazbrev did not meet a kind fate. He played both sides and actually helped the Wolf Lord and the Druids and the Elves expel Daragor from the Flaness to another world, because unfortunately their magic was not sufficient to get him back to the lower planes. And then he collected drops of Daragor's blood and made artificial eyes of amber with them. The drops of blood were contained within the eyes. He then replaced his eyes with those eyes and used them to dominate the werewolves which were in the region. They were drawn to him through Daragor's blood. And needless to say, the locals didn't like this too much. And another great army was mounted against him. He was wounded. Most of the werewolves retreated and spread out throughout the Flaness. As soon as he was injured, they're like, we're out of here. And he retreats to a structure of unknown origin, much like the cairns, some of the cairns in the Cairn Hills, but this one is in the northern Drakenskrabs. And this unknown structure, which radiates evil, became known as the Tomb of Tazbreb-Teneb. He gathered his last followers and went there and was never seen again. And throughout the centuries, various evil cults and sects and bands of dark druids have gathered there and mysteriously vanished over the centuries. And now someone who the players are looking for is there as well.
It's amazing, and all in 4 hours too. That's what's so awesome that they're going to experience that. So
they're going to have to explore it and hopefully find and stop the person they've been hired to find and stop.
That's going to be awesome. I'm really appreciative of you running that. Very cool. So here's my. I'll let Mike and Anna ask a couple questions.
Please. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Here's another question. So it appears there's a lot of fallen druidic lore throughout Greyhawk, right? It seems like everyone's caught that. When I was a kid, I even did it not knowing the lore very well in the early 80s. But I had a crazy druid in the Vespri summon the hunt. Right.
Oh yeah.
But Rob Kuntz has really pushed this. I know, and is I think it's Paul Stormberg has released those adventures just recently. So, is that gosh? How do I ask this? Is that a flaw of Druidism in Greyhawk that they're susceptible to really getting too pure? Maybe I'm not asking this right, because I'll give you another example. If you look at Candlekeep Mysteries, the highest level adventure which I ran, there it is. Yes, the highest level adventure I ran, Xanthoria, written by my friend Tony Winslow Brill. It's the same thing. It's another fallen druid.
Yep.
So so there. What do you think on that? I know it's conjecture, but
it's conjecture. But I think first to throw this into the mix, it goes back to, at least as far as Kuntz, it goes back to Andre Norton's Quag Keep, which of course is set in a proto Greyhawk, if you will.
Okay, the book. Right.
Yeah, the novel features another lapsed fallen druid who wants to be one of the protagonists, who actually becomes an antagonist to them.
Your sound went down a little bit there, Les.
There's a fallen druid in Quag Keep as well.
Okay. Yeah.
And
there you go. Okay.
Everything working?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, there's a fallen druid in that novel who knew one of the protagonists formerly, and did some bad things, and now becomes an antagonist to the protagonist. But yeah, it's a recurring motif, and I think part of what it has to do with is this notion of balance that comes up again and again in some of Gygax's stuff. You have to think that on the one hand, I'd say the source of the bad druid would go all the way back to some fears in the 19th century during the Celtic revival, when you had a revival of interest in historical druidism. But you also had this flip side who feared, this is pagan, this is evil. And then that feeds into a lot of later pulp stories. You wind up with some pretty morally gray druids in like Talbot Mundy's, I think it's Prose, the Samothrace novels. You wind up with evil druids in Frank Belknap Long, the guy who created the Hounds of Tinbloss and other great Cthulhu Mythos creatures. You wind up with bands of dark druids in that. There are hints throughout Robert E. Howard of all these ancient, with the Celts and such, or whoever, the Picts. They've all struck these bargains with these unholy creatures that dwell in the earth and have for centuries. So I think a lot of it goes back to that in terms of the archetype or stereotype even. In terms of how it operates in Greyhawk, again, I think it's that idea that you can get too close to nature and think that you're controlling it when it's controlling you. Or you can wind up approaching a viewpoint that is so removed from humanity that it can become frightened.
So, yeah, and it just came to me as a notation. That's, that I'll give you another example. I ran this just recently and placed this in the Narwhal area in Wild Coast, and that is Castles of Crusades Troller Games Verdant Rage. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
you got another one, another one. So, they're every, just, I guess it's an easy storyline to write about too. I mean, it makes total sense. What, Adam, Mike, your thoughts on this?
I'm kind of. Do you want to go first, Mike?
No, I was going to say I am dumbfounded by his knowledge of fiction,
it's
fiction and in Druidic history. My knowledge on Greyhawk Druidism is 0. I could probably tell you the deities of the old faith, and that's about it.
Les. It's amazing. I'm not that versed in all the kind of the side lore, so to speak, to it, but my take on it is, and I've kind of studied as much as the sources as I could find, so to speak, both in my map making areas. And my sense is that I want to tie Druidism and the old faith close to the Flan as a people, so to speak, really close. And to me, it's a wider religion than we realize, so to speak, meaning the dark side of it is part of the religion. And
I completely agree.
And so I have the dark side, and it comes, I want to take it back to meaning the way I have it in my campaign is that the Flan are the original, that they're the closest descendants to the original people, meaning they lived there for many millennia, and the religion kind of grew slowly into what it is today, so to speak. So back in the early times, they probably discovered undeath as a power source, so to speak, and the priest, and that's the sorcerers, rulers, so to speak. They were simply priests who became primitive undeads as a way to live on beyond the grave and control and kind of spook and all that. And then so Druidism and the old faith go from these kind of the nice village priest and druid who is there to bless the fields and do marriages and heal the sick a bit, be the protector and stuff like that, to the dark side, meaning when the Flan was, they had the heroes, the horned ones that the Flan talk about. These were the kind of the worst scum of the Flan people that they kept because they had a role to protect the people. So when there was like real danger, when there was intruders from outside or whatever, they can bring in the horned ones. They can call for them with drums or whatever. And the worst scum that they had in their back pocket was their secret nuclear weapons, basically. So they kind of kept, they always nurtured the dark side of the faith as well as the good side, so to speak.
I think I agree. We've discussed this before in chat, and I agree with you largely. Where I would draw the distinction is there's a difference between, and if we look at some of the demonic entities they are known to have been worshipped, right? We find, or evil gods even. Yeah. We notice a pattern forming. You have Neural, you have Ephraxis. Yep. You have Therisdun, you have Zugmoy. I look at these and I notice these are all aspects of nature. Yep.
And I want to have Jubilex and stuff like that in there too. The creepy, most scary dark sides of nature, so to speak, and even undeath in Orcus.
There's a piece I have upcoming in Postfest, whenever that's published, which gets into the origin of Ettercaps in the Sus. And the, how can I put it, how one druid's lapse. There's an ecology of the Ettercap piece that mentions that Ettercaps are supposedly originated when a group of druids fell to worshipping a demonic spider, but not Lolth. And I thought that protested a little too much. So it's an interesting piece. I hope people enjoy it when it comes out. But again, spiders, those, yes, certainly. Snakes. I mean, you have the serpent, of course, the source of magic. Yeah. Who supposedly helped her inspired Vecna. You have the Earth Dragon. Yeah. You have these very frightening aspects, but I think what happens is in my view, what would happen is you have at first, say, an animistic religion, which is to say a culture that views everything as having an anima, a soul
Mhm.
or spirit,
Yep.
some motive force behind it. And as the culture develops, and perhaps as it's mentioned several times that a lot of the Flan were nomadic at first, or at least for large portions of their existence. They started associating the wind here with the wind there, with the
Mhm.
wind there, and suddenly you wind up with a wind god.
Yeah.
Wind up with Baori taking on the aspect of the Mother Earth figure.
Mhm.
These gods become separate entities rather than, like the genius loci kind of concept.
Exactly, and that kind of advanced the religion and also split up different aspects of it. And I guess
Exactly.
you can have subgroups that focused on one aspect of it and not the whole, and then others could have parts of it. So because it became like from a single faith, it became like a multi-faith religion kind of thing. When it's like in almost all religion, you have different nominations and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oops, now
Well,
we're starting
you're
to lose you
muffled
again
there.
a bit. You're muffled.
Yeah,
You have your microphone
his mic is going.
somewhere fallen off somewhere. Yeah.
Les,
I think
he's
Still connected.
you zapped him out.
Yeah, but I think I think this discussion is really cool because it's a kind of a, and I want the, oh yeah.
Yeah, try again.
Good, we have it back. Yep,
Cool.
we have you back. Yep. But it's interesting because I don't feel like to make a campaign more interesting, not every religion should be emphasized in the same way. And that's why I think it's cool that Old Faith works a little bit different than the more kind of God-centric or deity-centric Common and Iridian and Sewell and other faiths. They should work differently, so to speak. And the Old Faith have kept some of the old animalistic, ritualistic, and then so you have different aspects of it, and you can kind of play with them in different ways in your campaign. Meaning a druid can be a druid in many different ways. You can, and it's kind of interesting in 5e now. There are several different druid aspects. They have one for fire, for instance, more like elemental druids. That was also back in the old school. There were elemental druids, and you can to tie into werewolves and werebears and stuff like that. I think it's awesome. You can kind of weave interesting patterns with it.
But the Flan aren't just Old Faith. I mean, there's other
No,
gods.
and then you have that's the religious side of the Flan, but then you have other sides too, the culture and the political side of it too. That is.
I knew nothing about, to be honest, I knew nothing about the Flan gods until we started playing with the Living Greyhawk Geoff group, and they introduced me to Alatar. We never used Alatar in our campaign. Seriously.
Yeah, it's really deep. Deep there.
But I see also that a lot of these so-called Flan gods and stuff is something that came when the Flan was exposed to more modern or different, like Iridian and Sewell faiths. They realized we want these name our gods too, so to speak. So they kind of took up these practices and made a Flan version of the other faiths too. And then the interesting thing is some of them became common, like I have Rao as an origin and Palor originally Flan gods, so to speak, or coming from Old Faith, and then became common, so to speak, and adopted by large part in it's like you have Foltus and Beery, Foltus and Palor being competitive deities.
I think can you hear me now?
You're a little muffled.
Barely.
You're a little muffled.
You're perfect sometimes, and then you disappear into a little bit of muffledness. Yeah.
Nah, we lost you.
Oof.
Yeah.
You might need to reset.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it might be bad if you have a wireless headset. Might be bad.
You may want to
reset. Or something.
You may want to reset it there if you can, Les. So a point that's in discussion out there is Druids in first edition were pure neutral.
Here we go.
There you go, crystal clear, perfect.
Yeah,
there you go. So
cool. What I was going to mention was, as a general rule, my Old Faith Druids tend to be true neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But in terms of, I allow Druids outside the Old Faith in that, and I think that you would have isolated cultures that worship still their native god, the spirit of the brook or whatever, right? Or maybe there was a demon locked in a rock, and they now worship that rock, right?
Mhm.
That rock somehow looks out for them and makes sure their community is safe. Or another example that comes to mind is it Tostanaka? Is that the name of the town, the city?
Sounds
Tosting, Skrelling's held. Yep. Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If memory serves, in Eric Mona's document about the backstory for Return to White Plume Mountain, he posits that the priest who led the revolt against Caraptus was a priest of Pelor. And that a lot of the architecture, if memory serves, within that Tostanaka was devoted to Pelor,
Mhm.
which ties into something interesting I'll come to in a sec. But what's cool about that, I think, is that you normally think, again, Earth Mother, Goddess, etc. But here you have an actual city, and you'll notice that it's worshiping a solar deity.
Mhm.
So clearly there were branches and deviations. You had a cleric of Pelor leading a bunch of rangers against Caraptus in this.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. The Flan culture was multifaceted, and especially since when they didn't have that many external enemies, they probably started fighting each other over who should rule them and etc.
And I was going to throw out that I love the detail that of ziggurats being in that place,
Mhm.
because ziggurats, Pelor, somehow that always brings to mind the inverted ziggurats one finds with Therisdun.
Yep.
And it reminds me that in an interview, Gygax once was asked what gods would have risen up against Therisdun, and he said he imagines Pelor would have been one of the first. So the idea of ziggurats and inverted ziggurats and whatnot somehow just appeals to my sense of association, symbolic association.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
And I'm also interested. Oh, sorry.
No. They're busting on Casey. Somehow they're busting on Casey's mom in chat. I don't know why they're doing that. It's a really good. There's a great side discussion going on about Druids now, and this is great. All the interaction, but so keep on going, please. I'm trying to multitask here. It's awesome.
It's but I was going to mention
Robux.
That I totally agree with you on that, Anna. That there needs to be some variety and. Because again, the thing is, I've noticed some people mention the British or the British Celtic Druids, and my thing is, I'm going to come. This is my hobby horse here. Okay, you have old Lore Bards who are clearly modeled on the Irish bards that you find in like the Ulster Cycle and so forth. Those don't have to be the only kinds of musicians who can cast spells or act as thieves. There are a fine number of literary traditions of the storyteller who enchants and charms.
Yeah, you have
or
it
defers
from
the king's thing. In Middle Eastern cultures,
you had the Nordics, the Icelandic sagas, and the other Nordic scripts and stuff from Viking Age and Iron Age. They have the skalds or the bards of the Vikings, so to speak.
And if you think of Pythagoras, right? That would be my other thing. If you think of musical notation and systems of musical notation, and then you think of Pythagoreanism as a philosophy, the idea of numbers as magic, and therefore music as magic, which is a recurring motif in a number of cultures. You can start to think of different ways that you can use a bard. You could have a bard who's basically, a math punk, a mathcore kind of lutist or something like that. You could have someone who's interested in the power of music as a magical form has to do with numbers. And I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I've introduced an entire tradition of generational bards in among the Backlunish, where the idea is each generation adds a stanza to this thing called the generational song. And the generational song is a love song, but it's a love song that doesn't end as long as the family tradition continues. Each generation adds a new stanza, and it becomes like a family song that is known to the public. So there are many ways you can play a bard. There are many ways you can play druids.
Yeah, and I can see bards, the old Flan bards, so to speak, as that they're keeping the oral tradition and the histories and instead of writing it down, they were the story keepers, so to speak, that kept the stories and retold them and made sure that the new generation could get to learn where things come from. So I can see they play a part both in Flan culture and Flan culture and religion. to me seems very interwoven, so to speak.
I would agree, and
Yeah,
I would
most
point out
yeah.
I'm sorry, for a historical precedent, I would point out that according to the Romans, right, there was a Druidic / Bardic school. And basically they were taught not to write anything down. It isn't only that there wasn't a written language. They were explicitly told that if they knew any written languages, don't use them.
Yeah, and in a way,
because these are our peoples.
Exactly, and because then no one else can find out about them unless they're there to listen and understand the language and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think also then you have the idea of Druidic as a language. There would be different Druidics for me, I think.
Well, I would have it that Druidic can also be in different forms, so to speak. You can have spoken Druidism, but you can also have sign language.
Symbols.
Symbols. And you can also have the language of alter things in nature. So now the Druid can follow you and see signs, so to speak. You can kind of do scribbles and barks and stuff like that that hardly anyone else could see. But someone who knows what they're looking for could find it and find the place to the holy tree or to a gathering place.
One role-playing thing that I do with my players who've chosen Druids, and this goes back to the animism idea, right? This goes back to the idea that in the game Druids can talk to rocks and trees and stuff, and animals.
Yeah.
But the idea of animism, that everything has a soul or spirit and can communicate to it if you just listen.
Yep.
What I do is say that they are looking for some herbs to come up with a poultice or a salve for an injury or a poison. I'll make them, if it's like a later game that has a skill check, I'll make them make a nature check, and if they succeed, I'll explain to them, or if I think that they're just good enough, if they're skilled enough in this, it's as if the plant is speaking to you. It's as if this plant is saying, "I am what you need to heal your friend." Or I'll have, like, say that there's a portal or a gate nearby where something has come through from one of the other outer planes, right? There are certain types of herbs and mosses that are associated in various mythologies, including Celtic and Norse mythology, with the idea of liminal spaces, right? Kind of spaces between existences. So what I'll do is I'll say, you notice as you approach this place, make a perception check, or I'll just give it to you if it's first money and you're a smart druid or a perceptive druid. You notice this moss growing there, and you know from your experience in your training that these mosses only grow in places where the walls between worlds are thin. And that'll automatically get that player and his companions all their nerves on edge, right? So I'll throw little details out there, give the druid a little bit of an edge in terms of nature.
Oh yeah, you can. It's like you can draw the parallels with the real world, meaning that the plants and stuff have a chemical exchange system. So as a druid, you can sense the mood of plants. You can sense where they can find water and where they have enemies and where there's predators that eats them, meaning vegetarian.
That leaves out even the question of pathogens or stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. All stuff like that. A druid can sense that. He or she can read nature in a way that others can't, so to speak.
Let's I have a question that I'm going to save for the end because it's going to go really down a rabbit hole, and that concerns witchcraft and Flan. But
cool.
Let's hold off on that.
Yes.
Ask it now.
Because I want to, because we got some questions that are deviating in chat and group chat. So let's get. So Rich asks, are there Flan that are not prescribers of the old faith out there? Present, past, future. And then Christoph asks, is there any significant history to Flan we know from before the migrations? So
we were touching on that. David Leonard is really the expert on that.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I said, I tended to have it where everything before, a lot before the how can I put it? The official calendar starts in the folio. I leave ambiguous deliberately. As in, there are stories about it, but maybe some of those stories are true, and maybe some of them are myths or things that have inflated over the years.
Yeah.
So that's my take.
Okay.
David obviously goes through very minutely the lore and does a great job of it, and has some passages on like those four sorcerer kings or priests, and all kinds of neat stuff. And I'd highly recommend that if you're interested in that particular angle.
Yeah,
it's a limit of my knowledge, which I'm willing to concede, because it doesn't interest me. It just doesn't figure into my campaign.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I just wrote a blog post and put it on my Patreon, and I'm going to talk about it on my seminar on Friday. And tie it into the setting itself and geography and climate, and put like simply put a scenario that you might pick and cherry pick from, so to speak, that on the origins of humans and how Flan and Omens and the others, how they developed and interacted and stuff, and it's. And anyone who wants to have inspiration from this for their own campaign should not only read my blog post when it becomes available for everybody fairly soon, and they should also go to Curiosity Stream has a fantastic series about the civilizations and how the Earth worked, so to speak, and how climate change and through history and stuff like that in civilization. That is dynamite if you want to dig into ancient history. I saw that after I written the blog post, so I was like, wow, someone else think about the same things that I thought about, so and done maps, but it's kind of tying into the how the world evolved, so to speak, and to me that is a bit important bit too, because it explains a lot of the old relics. Why are there old cairns? Why are there old settlements on mountaintop somewhere and stuff like that? That seems to be stupid, meaning the Ego Coot. Why are there ruins up in the north that no one wants to live up there because the climate might have been different? That was part of and so on and so forth. So yeah.
The thing to answer Christoph's question right quick about Druids outside of the Old Faith, there is, if one accepts Kuntz's Dark Druids as written, as published, the Pied Piper edition actually has the alternate subclass Dark Druid. With its scaling levels and a unique set of spells and skills.
Very cool.
I would point out that if you find something quite similar to those Dark Druids in the second edition complete book of Druids,
right,
and the Shadow Druids from that.
Yeah.
And generally in my campaign, that's how I work it. You obviously, if you can have Dark Druids and a counter hierarchy that goes all the way up to the fact that they have Dark Hierophants, which I find fascinating. The Dark Druids actually have Dark Hierophants. Then you could then it's easy to say that if you're out, not all Druids have to belong to the Old Faith.
Okay.
That might be a controversial statement, but I'm like, in such a varied culture, you have to think of the Old Faith as one stream of Flan continuity. There are likely to be, like I said, if there's a local spirit and a Druid serving it, they may not be high level. They might be 5th level, particularly high level. They might be 5th, 6th. There may not be, your superstar, Druid taking on the establishment or anything. But nonetheless, there could be a tradition within a community of one Druid who serves whatever nature spirit oversees or connects to that community. That'd be my take on it anyway.
Yeah, for me, it's more like the Druidism is an organization, so to speak, of multiple different, meaning you have dark ones and you have ones that parts of it that serve payload more than others, so to speak. So and so they serve different aspects of it. But one of my key aspects in my campaign is that the Druids, so to speak, that the Old Faith are true to Flan, so to speak. That meaning they want to protect Flan interests, they want to protect Flan culture and stuff like that, especially against Druidians. But that is starting to change now when the world have gone haywire. So there are new alliances being made, which is kind of interesting because Flan culture has a resurgence, both almost from the brink of extinction, so to speak.
And I should mention this, Anna. You might appreciate this. In one of the things that I thought about what Kuntz had written about Dark Druids, and the idea again that it starts off as well-intentioned extremism, to cite the TV tropes page. If you were to go ahead and think about it, one of the things that I came up with in mind was the idea that some Druids deliberately split from the old faith because they saw the old faith's concern with balance and the cosmic balance and so forth. And they were like, your notion of the balance, this being the old faith, your notion of the balance actually prolongs the mother's misery. It prolongs the suffering that the earth continues. You can't claim to care about human life because you'd be willing to sacrifice villages, populations, etc.
Yeah.
Right.
I have it that.
So basically, this particular strain of dark druidism would say, you're hypocrites. By embracing chaos, by embracing specifically, say, entropy or disease or so forth, we want an end to it. We want a perfect balancing of the equation. We want death, yes, but it's almost to them a form of euthanasia, that sentient life and maybe life itself is a curse.
Huh.
So it becomes a very dark and nihilistic philosophy.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, and I also have it that druids don't necessarily have to. The neutrality is not on an individual level; it's on the faith level for me. Meaning, druidism can be go from span from good to evil. It's about your interests, so to speak. Who do you serve and why do you serve? And then there are different aspects. So they're good druids and they're evil druids. But
and see, I incorporate
I
go ahead.
Big tent, so to speak. Yeah.
I go ahead and I maintain that with the old faith, because of their particular ideology, they do adhere to, and I know some people hate this concept, but they do adhere to something like militant neutrality. However, the limits of that ideology are pointed out quite frequently by those who split away from them.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the Dark Druids, they may be wanting to destroy all life, but they have a point about the limits of the Druids' philosophical viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly when it comes to, you want us to consult with this high king or this tribal leader and interact with this community, and then at a certain stage you want us to just be willing to let that community die.
Okay.
What kind of faith is this? What kind of respect for life is this? You were saying that this portion gets to die when this other portion doesn't.
Well,
and
you serve a
there's
long-term
an
goal,
implication
so
of
to speak.
hubris. It's a long-term
higher
goal,
so to speak. That it's not on the individual level.
But their catch would be, of course, that the counter argument to that, of course, would be that these are still finite humans. For all, you might be a hierophant even, but you're still limited by your human intelligence.
Yeah, but
you're not a god.
Yeah,
you're
but
not
that's
all powerful.
But they're almost there, so to speak. Meaning that the most powerful ones are almost there, and I think that's an interesting Flan tradition going back to early times when you talk about the
ascension to.
The sorcerers, priests, and others who were powerful, mighty rulers of back then, and meaning we only have the faint cultural recollection of them, so they could have been anything, but so you can kind of play with all cool ideas. And then you have, if you want to, I tied in Vecna to Flan culture too. He was one of the leaders, so to speak, that when they got their cultural hubris or really became almighty, so to speak, and wanted to conquer everything, and had that period. And then come migration, and they were thrown off the Rookers completely.
So I know, Les, you gave me a bunch of notes that you stated about the Flan and the culture and stuff, and you have down here Solm Tostenka and the Occluded Empire.
Oh yeah. Well, I already went into Tostenka somewhat.
Right.
The only thing and Solm and all of those areas, I think that's fascinating. That actually raises another interesting point that I was going to have here, which is you have Vathris, right? Who from the Bright Lands, Itar, I believe, is where he was originally from. Who basically was a hero who ascended to demigodhood, and then was slain. Defending that kingdom as it fell, I believe, to Solm, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And what you find there is he maintains, despite his quote-unquote death, there's a cult of worshippers who believe that he will return.
Okay.
And either balance the scale, so to speak, or just inflict vengeance. It depends on how you perceive, the particular cultist perceives the return. And I was going to say that raises another interesting thing related to what Anna was raising. Which is you also have in the Pomage Crovis, of course, the slumbering hero down in the Pomage from Joe Block's article. see the Pomartian die.
Yeah.
Who's supposed to
Another
return at
hero.
some point. Exactly. You have a recurring motif here among certain, at least with
Yeah.
two Flan characters, one
Mhm.
north and one south,
Yep.
of the hero who is like Arthur, like Christ, and perhaps like Elvis in some versions of Elvis's disappearance, destined to return and bring joy and good things to everyone upon his return.
Do
Yeah,
we have
it-
any
it-
idea where he is supposedly interred, or is it anywhere?
Somewhere in the
Pomarsh?
Drachensgrabs.
Somewhere in the
Yeah.
Drachensgrabs.
Yeah. But I think it's cool that we have these kind of ancient sites. We have myths and stuff that have left relics and rumors and faith in it from a bygone era, so to speak, that you can kind of puzzle together the way you like it for your campaign. You can take little parts and say that belongs to this and that belongs to something else, or they both belong to the same thing, and then you can kind of puzzle together the pieces the way you like it for your campaign. And I love that there are a lot of these breadcrumbs spread out, so to speak.
There's
a lot of them are Flan, I think, in my opinion, but someone else might want to do something else with it. So yeah.
The homesteads, the Sewell family, who are mentioned in connection with the Sages Guild of Safeton in that One Dragon magazine article about grimoires and books. In my campaign, one of the homestead women wrote a book called Ocular Occultism, which is a history of all the prosthetic eyes and ritual blindings and everything else that are known to have occurred. If you think about it, you have Grumpsh, you have obviously the Eye of Vecna, you have these various magical eyes that are relics or artifacts or just magical items. I basically went ahead and I had a character, an NPC, of course, long since dead, who wrote an entire tome about this stuff. And of course, the eyes of Tazbreth Neb, who I mentioned earlier, my own creation, wound up coming up in that as well. And again, it was the idea. This is a recurring motif in fantasy literature. It's a recurring motif in literature and culture and religion. You know, the idea of being blinded, and that giving to someone some sort of mystical insight or such.
Well, now I want to ask a question to all of you guys. What do you see the Flan connection to the elves and the dwarfs and others who
That's
were
a good question.
That's an excellent question.
probably there, so to speak? What are
is.
your sense in their connections or hatreds or
Well,
love or whatever?
I'll
Because-
just, go ahead.
Go on.
I was just saying, we know there's a connection in Geoff somehow with the Fae, right? That was placed in there. But I don't know anything beyond that. I'm a complete novice on that answer.
Yeah.
So
I would suggest that because we know that there are relations between the Druids, the Sylvan Elves of the Gnarly, particularly one of the clans, and the Gnarly Rangers, I would assume that there are relatively good relationships historically going on in that region.
Yep.
I would also assume that there are other examples. For example, some elves who might have come into conflict with Vecna in some versions of the canon, where they might not have quite so fond an idea or fond a sentiment towards Flan. I think it would vary from region to region and Flan group to Flan group.
Yeah, I guess you can have Flan who are so pissed at whoever killed and defeated Vecna, and there are other Flan who are relieved that they got liberated from Vecna. So you might have Flan have taken it, or people taking it both ways, so to speak.
So, Les, you just mentioned the Gnarly Rangers and stuff, and you note in your notes you think the Wild Coast is a heavily influenced Flan area, correct?
I tend to think that obviously you have an Iridian influence, particularly in the Pomarge.
Right. Okay.
You have the Sewell came up, Safeton and Narwhal in particular, come to mind. But I would argue that, yeah, at one point, I tend to think if you look at the map, right?
Yep.
I can't help but feel that the Wild Coast at one point was something that I refer to in my campaign as the Great Forest.
Okay.
Yep.
And that basically, as these various populations, as the Flan started to settle down and no longer be nomadic, and then as the Iridians and the Sewell arrived, the trees started getting cut, and that of course would create tensions with the elves.
Yeah, I have one
Okay.
interesting thing is that is one of the few areas in the world that has been consistent. Even if you put like a much warmer climate or a much colder climate, it's
Yeah.
still very habitable. It's one of the most ancient, it could be one of the most ancient places that have been, just like on Earth, there are some parts of Australia, for instance, some valleys and stuff that have been basically untouched by different climates for tens of millions of years. This is the similar equivalent on Earth, and that's one of the interesting things. Meaning the sus and the whelkwood and the gnarly can be some of the oldest forests on the planet, and there might be a reason that the elves and others live there, because they know that things have changed, and they know that that was one of the few places that didn't change and stay the same. So there, that you can have that as one of the backgrounds for that place being special, so to speak.
The reason I'm asking this, Les, is that I don't know of notations in the original glossographies or 83 set noting this is a Flan area. And are you deriving that from Dark Druids, from Kuntz, and putting that in the gnarly? Is that where you know.
Yeah, I'm putting it from the idea that was located in the gnarly.
Okay.
Okay. You look at the populations; they tend to be Iridian, Sul, but still have traces of Flan. And I would assume that there must be some pure-blooded Flan still around. It's just that they're mostly mixed by this point.
Yeah.
Also, one of the other things I just want to throw out is I noticed people were talking about Eric Mengo's great piece on the Druids of the Old Faith. I highly recommend that piece, and I also recommend in a back issue of the Oath Journal, I want to say it's around 12 or 13, Paul Stormberg had a piece on the Old Faith, which is also exceptionally good and a great source for people looking to
Anna brought that up in the previous discussion.
Yep.
Well, here's a good thing.
They're both great. Yep.
We can ask Eric himself in a week and a half.
Excellent.
The Sunday after the con, Ed Greenwood and Eric are back. So there you go. So we can ask that question specifically. I've already written it down, and we can go off on that tangent absolutely, because people want to know. So we'll get Eric to answer some of those questions, which will be really exciting.
And to go back also to Christoph and Oiscribe's discussion, they're talking about the known depictions of the Flan. Don't hate me, bro, but isn't Rose Estes' protagonist supposed to be Flan or something?
Maybe. There's druids involved, so yeah.
I'm saying that, whatever the wolf dude is.
Yeah.
Make Mika or whatever.
Yeah, Mika. Yeah.
So,
according to Lunch Rich, it's a wolf nomad. So.
Oh, okay. Backlunish.
Flan. Yeah, mix.
Yeah, Backlunish Flan mix. So you have him, and you have in terms of another mix, you have Curly Greenleaf. Which would be what, half elf and half human, and presumably, because if you assume that the Old Faith is connected closely to the Flan, I would assume that he has some Flan blood in him. But other than that, yeah, it's basically the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer and the Adventure Begins book are the only depictions I can think of.
So,
and of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention David Howery, I think is his name. Did do that sort of Native American themed or plains themed adventure in Dungeon Magazine back in the day. I think it's called Ghost Dance.
Okay,
sounds right.
Okay, so history and territory. You want to go, Les? Is that
Backlunish? Definitely Backlunish, Jason. See, I was just wanting to another reason to go into why I hate Rose Estes' books and everything about them, but that's okay.
Oh,
my personal Carl Sargent, to use the Jason Zavada analogy.
So we have how many kingdoms? All right. So Rich brought up non-Old Faith Flan areas. We had the Old Kingdom of Alyssa. That was Flan, correct?
Yep.
Was it based on the Old Faith, or was it not?
Not. At least most of the indications seem to be not.
Okay.
If you look at the surrounding areas and some of the discussions of
hang on a second, just one point, meaning the Old Faith, I don't have it that the Flan don't call themselves the Old Faith. That's an Ovidian modern interpretation. Right. It's like the Christians and others use the word pagans on the ones that aren't like us.
I use it. It's a variable term to me. It's like it's either that It can be used in the sense of they follow the old faith.
Yeah.
Or if you think of George R.R. Martin's The Song of Ice and Fire, the bit where they refer to the old gods and the new.
Yeah.
A similar kind of thing. It's like these are they worship those old gods. It's like those are the gods of the old faith, right?
Yeah, and
but they can be mixed in some places, like with
yeah, I have some
newer
friends
gods.
that now have adopted the old faith term themselves because that is label has been put on them for more than half a millennium now. So,
and by the way, that was I was going to mention that I'm kind of curious just to myself. This was just me thinking aloud and going over some old notes that I had. If there's a connection between, you were asking about like Flan cultures that develop outside of, or maybe with a very minimal influence from the old faith as a whole,
right.
Or as an ideology or a belief system. I was thinking, if you look at some of the examples that seem to be given with these hero deities, you'll notice that in the Pomage, there's supposedly the worship of the Earth Dragon.
Yep.
Which seems to me, again, a more masculine emphasis than Baori as a central figure. And you also have a hero deity there, or a kind of returning hero kind of figure.
Torash Mac, or who is that?
Crovis.
Oh, Crovis. Okay, that's what I was like.
And then again, you go north, and you find. I'm wondering if there's a turn that takes place in Flan culture where once a settlement grows beyond a certain point, and they're less reliant upon the land and the seasons, that you wind up with an emphasis on the gods who are more reflective of what they are doing. For example, like it would make sense in the Pomage to worship an earth deity, an earthbound deity, a dragon in particular, if you're interested in, if you're doing mining, right?
Right.
It would make sense if you have a city with towering ziggurats, etc., to worship a solar deity, a sky god, basically. Okay. So I was just thinking about. I've been giving a lot of thought to that too.
So let's past history. The Kingdom of Alyssa fell when in the timeline? Do we have it?
Top of my head?
Yeah.
Don't make me look it up in my notes, man.
Early in the Arabian
See it, Carlos?
expansion.
So we're talking about 200 common year, something like that? Or it's way before that, because it's way before that. Negative 700. All right. So that one fell, and you're saying that it's not necessarily the old faith. And then according to 10 was around until the Ayu's invasions, and then it gets abused. But, so what about at 10, as far as that question that Rich brought up, as far as complete old faith? Like, what made 10 different, unique at that time frame as a kingdom?
I think 10 is more of a more modern construction. I think 10 was a reaction simply because it was the borderland of the Great Kingdom, and it was the where the Flan could gather and be themselves, so to speak, and still kind of interact. So I have it that 10 is not part of the old Flan structure. It's the survivors that built something outside of just like a lot of areas up there, Bandit Kingdoms and Land of Ayus and the whole all that area up there are various kind of the leftovers, the outcasts, the survivors, and
I tend to think
formed different types of societies on the fringe and the margins outside so-called civilized society down in the continent where you recognize states and stuff like that.
I tend to view 10 and the surrounding areas much as Anna does. The qualifier I would give is that I tend to view the populations as going one of two routes. Where either there's an emphasis on race and culture as opposed over religion.
Yep.
So that you have something like a nascent national identity or something like that, or collective tribal identity brewing, or you have these pockets of, as Anna said, survivors who cling to their old ways. But of course, that will at some point be forced into either conflict or being subsumed within the larger national or just their cultural narrative.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree.
So
That's my view too.
Jason just threw out a zinger of a question. What is Igwolf? Is she Flan?
Yes, definitely.
No.
In my camp, definitely, and even Grust is a Flan that they've used, cult leader, so to speak, and so I have that Grust and Igwolf conspired to create I use as a Flan hero to save the Flan race, and then it kind of derailed and things went haywire and kind of derailed from there. But I had it as it was their response to, as part of the Dark Faith, to create Ayus as a kind of, that's why they called him, he called himself the Old One, as a way
Gary
to
says no.
I'm with Gary.
I know we've had this discussion
Yeah,
before.
all right.
Igwolf
Yeah.
is not even Orphean.
See, that would be my thing. Is it depends on what world she's from.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm, and it's one of those questions where, again, I'm comfortable with a degree of ambiguity.
But it's not that I necessarily think she was biologically born Flan, but she became part of Flan culture. She might be one old.
Then she's still everything.
Exactly. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So Cathay asked a great question about the Temple of Grazits and Divers. Is it mostly Flan? What kind of worshippers are within that temple? So
I would have it as Flan. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
In my campaign, I have it at.
Right.
That's what their god of sedition, love, kind of ecstasy, all sorts of.
And see, that would be it to me.
And stuff.
Gross worshippers tend to be more mixed, simply because I think seduction and charm and a kind of knife-like sexuality.
Yeah.
Pardon the expression. Feed nicely into most of the cultures on some level.
Yep.
So I think Grost has a lot of appeal across the board.
Oh yeah, he can,
if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and also that some of the old gods have become common, like whatever they spread Palor and others. They've been adopted way outside of their original home, so to speak, culturally or religiously. They borrow from each other. Yep.
Still following along the chat here, Gary. I again agree with Gary. I think I use being Flan is purely by chance or design. Igwolf was in the Yaddles. She picked a Flan father. If Igwolf had been based out of the Jotuns, let's say, and picked someone from the Yeomanry, he'd be a Suol demigod. I think that's purely what it is.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was I'm trying to remember now. Diridon, was that the name of the place in the Bright Desert?
Bright Desert?
Yeah.
No.
Or I'm thinking
that was Solm and Iton.
So yeah. Well, wherever that was, because I made a note of this here. Onwall. That used to be in Onwall.
Dear Lore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, circa minus 4,300 common year.
Wow.
Was a center of Tiamat worship.
Dragon's Head Peninsula.
Yep.
All right, so that's an on-wall. So
yeah, and Rich, there you go. The exception to demon worship, you did have a bunch of lawful evil Flan up there, apparently.
So all right, Les, give us some things that we may not know, or some.
To answer Jason right quick, that's from one of the Creighton Broadhurst pieces over on the Wizards of the Coast side.
Oh, from Tiamat?
Yeah, when he listed all these, what was it, Lost Cities of the Flan, or Secrets of the Flan, or whatever it was. Yeah,
Len had Tiamat and Bahamut in his pantheon going way back to the beginning, very, very beginning of time, which is pretty interesting. I think that's just coincidence, probably, between the two. So,
well, let's face it, she's a great villain who I don't think gets enough love, or not the right kind of love.
Yep.
So let's hear some tidbits you may have of some things that you find interesting in the Flan culture or history that we may not know about. How's that sound? Because you got some things. I mean, you're throwing a lot of things out there that I first time I've heard, which is great.
Oh wow, cool, thanks. Let's see. I've already gone into the hero worship thing, and or the idea of the returning hero. I would say again, a lot in terms of things that people don't pay enough attention to. I'm going to bring it up again.
Okay.
Player's Guide, the Anne Brown book,
Mhm.
has a wonderful page devoted to basically children and their temperaments and so forth according to the season that they're born in. It's almost like an astrological thing, except in this case, it's the season that you're born in. You have children of the flesh, children of the cold, children of so forth, and it's a really neat little thing. And again, it ties, I think, into that idea of most of the Flan having this concept of time as cyclical.
Huh. And that's right. That's right in the like the 3.0 or the very late
3.0.
era. Yeah.
Yeah.
Book. Wow. I never even the Player's Guide. I left that downstairs. That is interesting. I did not know that was in there. How much in depth does it go into that discussion? Last about a page?
Yeah, it's about a full page, but with a whole section devoted to the Flan view of the seasons, and there's a little section on the page of the temperament and nature of children who are what's supposed to be the temperament and nature of children born in certain seasons.
But where was this?
It's in the Player's Guide
To Greyhawk.
to Anne Brown.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Player's Guide to Greyhawk. Yep.
Yep.
Kind of like that one that came out after the adventure begins, right?
You should read that book every 10 years. I realize that now. It's more than 10 years since I read it. Now read it again. Yep.
It's got a lot of neat
fantastic. Yep.
Neat ideas and concepts tucked away in it. And again, if you don't like it, you can always ignore it. But just in terms of a culture that relies so much, I think, on it, or at least its foundations seem to be in a concept of cyclic time and seasons and nature. And again, the idea that you would fear certain, how can I put this? Undeath without purpose. Let me put it that way. Undeath for the sake simply of continued existence. I tend to think that, when I look at that, that would be something scary to someone who believes in cyclic time, because you would have then with a lich or something, you would have a being that is trying to hold on to its individual identity outside of the cycle, something breaking the cycle.
Yep.
There it is. That one.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's the one we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a great book. Yep.
So, very cool.
That'd be one thing. That would be one thing certainly that I would draw attention to. Because also I think makes for interesting. You can have some interesting little PC moments, role playing moments with that kind of stuff.
There you go. 38 months. You can't miss a month there. You got to stay ahead of everyone there, Nas.
Oh,
38th
awesome.
month.
Nice.
Yeah, he's the longest sub we have. So, Tim, you got to get with the.
That is right. Well done.
Yeah. Get with our Draco, Tim, Naz, because he's probably gonna have to cancel that Sunday session you just signed up for. So get with him, please, ASAP. All right, thank you. Really appreciate it.
That is right. You'll appreciate, having mentioned Star Liches, that there's a role-playing game called the Hypertellurians I was looking at the other day that has space liches in it. So.
Hey man, they had space vampires in Buck Rogers. So.
I know, man, and I love that. I love that episode.
Yeah. Okay, that was one good thing here. So I see also you have down here I know you talked about the dying returning champions, but do we have any in the recent history list, like from 570 on? Do you have any notes about any of them and any of the ventures that have published or anything in that recent era? Is it all ancient? Is it mostly in history lore for Flan?
I think most of it tends to be history. Now, I would certainly say that it's a rife area for a DM to create. Okay. Or maybe have a player character who's in the post 576, 570s era.
Okay.
But you could have a PC potentially become one of those characters, one of those revered. And I think that would be a neat turn to take, where your character dies, but guess what? They're worshipped, and it's believed that they will return in some great hour of need. So yeah, that would be to my knowledge. I can't think of any, but that's how I would use it. Okay. Use the idea.
So I've always was interested in the map showing pockets of Flan that existed, going back, and this one here was like, oh, I guess they just got bypassed, and that was supposed to be the way it was looked like. All the migrations went past.
Yeah.
Is G off? So what is your not? Whoops, I don't even have that map up right now. I'm moving it around on here, and you guys can't even see it. So what's the theory behind G off, Jeff, however you pronounce it? And also its relationship to, I mean, there's demi-humans galore in this area too, particularly Sylvan Elves. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's the interesting thing, is that I think that this ties into, and I think it's by design. If you think about the I hate to use the phrase, but the geopolitics of everything.
Okay.
If you go through Geoff, if you go through, let's say, the entire region from Geoff all the way down to the Pomarsh. The reason I mention this is that you'll have, of course, you've got giants, right?
Yes.
And you'll notice that in the Pomarsh, this doesn't get played up enough, I think, but it comes up in the encounter tables, I think, in the box set, and it certainly comes up in Artifact of Evil. The idea that the Drakensgrubs have a population of mountain and hill giants and verbeegs.
I've always had them there too. I agree. 100%,
Exactly.
100%.
And you'll notice again that you have the border with demi-human territory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So again, I mean that's how I would play it. There would certainly be a kind of cultural familiarity to you could transplant someone from one region to another, and they'd probably recognize some of the same situations.
Okay.
And probably some of the same cultural influences.
So, is getting on the migrations? Is that your theory though? Is that this area was just skipped? Because
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason.
It's
all woods there. Like, we're not going through the forest.
Exactly.
Okay.
No more damned trees.
All right.
Well, down in the Sheldamore Valley was probably much more fertile and easier to farm and stuff like that. So the hillsides up on the mountains were probably less prime property to settle originally.
Settlement of opportunity, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. They all sound awful, Gary, as far as Geoff, Jeff. What to utilize there. So
I like Geoff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Geoff guy.
Me too.
Whatever it is, though. Just because I don't pronounce anything right. All right.
I always tell my players it's just regional accents, man. You're not pronouncing it wrong. I'm not pronouncing it wrong.
So
characters are pronouncing it wrong.
Gary asked, "Where's exactly your campaign and what's going on in it?" There, less concerning the Flan.
Oh man, my players are actually in the regular campaign, which is on hiatus right now. We took a break. The first part of the campaign was set in 598, and I incorporated some of what happened in Living Greyhawk with the politics of the city of Greyhawk and some other things. But a long story short, the players are now in possession of a map. Mm-hmm. Now, this map happens to be in a certain location, which will come up in one of the one-shots and in the next section of the campaign, which is going to be a flashback to 577.
Oh, okay.
We're going to be playing first edition.
Cool.
So I'm going to be introducing a whole group of people who are used to playing fifth edition to first edition, set in 576. And it'll involve the search for this map and for some other things before the map came into the possession of the characters in 598. When we finish that, we're skipping ahead in time to about 601 Common Year, and the characters find out that they really have to get to the location that is on the map. Now, the location that's on the map is a city that was crafted from the bones of a gigantic extinct creature by a Flan community. And faced with the possibility of an incursion by the Iridians, these Flan, I'm not going to give away the location yet in case my players are
Am I right
listening.
on the map here, or am I got to move somewhere?
Oh, no, I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say where it is. Because I anticipate the looks of horror where they realize which marsh they have to go into to get to this place.
Okay.
Well, that narrows it down.
Basically, it's a magically preserved place of bone and stone that this Flan deliberately, ritually sacrificed their entire tribe to preserve and sink. And it is guarded by bog mummies. And yes, there may in fact be an undead priest there.
Very cool.
And they will have to go there and recover something, or not. And something really terrible could happen if they decide not to. But that's one option, one place where we're going, where they're going. And I see Mateus in the chat doing the big eyes because he's in my campaign. So
yeah, so you don't want to give anything away there.
Exactly, nothing too major. Just you guys are screwed. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. So
and then of course the one shot's coming up on this weekend. The Tomb of Tazbrip, and even the Runaway Goblin Bride, by the way, ties into an old Flan structure. So
cool. Lots of Flan tie-ins. We have not though, and I'll hop back here. We have not though talked at all about the Tim area, that he plays in.
Oh, excellent.
The Rovers. Yes. So, what are your thoughts on the Rovers and culture and what may be going on, past, present, future, as far as the yeah, go ahead.
My general take is obviously, and I don't know, again, I hate to say because I really like what I've seen of Tim's campaign, but in my own vision of the Rovers of the Barrens, I tend to think that they still worship an aspect of Baori as a kind of, maybe, not quite as much as their primary goddess, but or primary deity, but nonetheless, there's the aspect of Baori as a great mare. I do that from place to place. I have, for example, among these darker circles, you have the aspect of Baori as a chthonic entity. In other words, if you have Baori the mother, you have her as the cradling arms. You also have Baori as the grave, the earth that takes the dead. You would also, I think, from their perspective, I could very much see them adopting her in the image of a creature that they've developed a close relationship with.
Okay.
If that makes any kind of sense.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because we tend to, I think, visualize our gods in terms of what we do and how the gods relate to us. The gods become relatable to us through our actions, right? And through our surroundings. Very much ties into the idea of animism as well. You can think of, the breath of a horse as a motive force. And the cessation of that. There's also, I would say that they would probably have their own Bardic traditions. I think of some of the great Central European and steppe-dwelling societies that have their own traditional epics and musicians who perform and record the tribe's histories and the histories of their great rulers. So I'd probably work something like that in there.
So
as well.
My question is that what do you think of how Tim has adopted almost a Native American feel to it? Is that something that you would say, hey, this is a good idea, or is it you go a little bit more of a different? I hate relaying real life to game, and I'm not trying to, but
let me tell you what my general take on all of that is. Because I've mentioned the historical Druids before, and the thing is that I want to emphasize that the historical Druids are not the Druids of Greyhawk. Right. They are an influence, or at least their memories, our knowledge of them and our recollections are an influence on them. But there's also that influence from, say, let's say Halloween 3, right?
Yes,
I mean, that ties into Druidic stuff, right?
Yeah.
You have the Dark Druid stuff that was written for the pulps by Belknap Long that I mentioned earlier, and so forth. So what I tend to do is I tend to take elements of different cultures that I see as related and mix them together to fit what I perceive this alien culture. By this I mean, you know, a culture of another world as being. So I have no problem with Tim doing that. I'd say that my own conception of the Rovers is probably a combination of, and I know Jason is a big advocate of like the Cossacks is a kind of thing for that. I'd say a combination of some of that and maybe some Mongolian influences and some Native American influences, but not identical to or a one-to-one correspondence for any one of those cultures.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree on that, because you don't want to go there. I'm going to sneeze.
It's just like, you know, when we were speaking earlier about Ten and some of the other areas, I always visualize the people who live there as existing in, bless you, a mid-'80s sword and sorcery film where the style of armor and clothing is just an amalgamation of whatever they could grab from the dead. Or craft from whatever materials are at hand.
Yeah.
So,
makes sense.
Yeah, that's how I tend to look at that.
That's a lot interesting. I see the Rovers are the last of the nomad Flan in my campaign. They are the last.
Yeah, the last true
the last ancestors of the Ur-Flan, or whatever you say, meaning culturally and stuff. So they roam up there, they hunt, and they kind of they haven't settled down much. And so they are the last of the true Flan. They probably call themselves the true Flan, so to speak. And they have an older version of they're not old faithers in modern terms, so to speak. They are even older than that in their religion, and probably more kind of widespread and stuff. But I have it at they are the true successors of the old Flan that has hunted there since the last ice age, so to speak. They were the ones that were up there on the borderlands, and the other ones kind of succumbed. They probably see Tenites as given into the Great Kingdom and stuff, and sucking up to the enemy at least halfway, so to speak. And then the problem is that was in my campaign also. I used first mistake, so to speak. He tried to recruit them, and then when they didn't want to be recruited, then he started fighting them and
antagonize them.
Yeah, and that was his first mistake, so to speak. So he's hunting. He's trying to wage war against his base as much as his enemy. So that is he's too egotistical, so narcissistic. So yeah.
Oh, one of the other things I was going to mention is, and I'm sure Jason Zavada will appreciate this reference. There's an underappreciated now author named Harold Lamb, who back in the day he wrote the screenplay for Cecil B. DeMille's The Crusades, among other films. He also wrote a number of nonfiction history books, but he also wrote for the adventure pulps. And among his series is a cycle of stories that influenced Robert E. Howard, involving a Kozak writer named Khlit, Khlit. Those are available. I believe they were reprinted a few years back by Bison Books. And if you're interested in the depiction of a nomadic culture, and I'm not saying, again, it's like, to me, these are things that influenced, among other things, the guy who wrote Conan, right? Mm-hmm. These are great works of historical pulp fiction. I would really recommend reading those for another take on those kinds of cultures. Sorry, I just had to digress there.
That's okay.
But it's
So I just got some
and yeah, actually, Hagar the Horrible, that was the other thing I was going to mention, is one of the things that I tend to think about when I'm doing a lot of these Flan communities will notice, like Ten or Jeff or the Wild Coast and the Pomage. You notice that we're dealing with border territories, right? And one of the things that comes to mind with that actually is very Robert E. Howard-y, if you will. It's Robert E. Howard-esque. It's the notion that in his stories, like I said, you have Conan and Aquilonia and the Picts. You have Bran McMorn and the Picts and the Romans. And you have his stories set in the southern border states and in the Old West, many of which, and Vikings and other things where basically one of the issues that comes up is, again, this idea of the frontier and the dangers inherent in the frontier, which range from the conflict between civilization and what he would call proudly barbarism. But let's say other cultural viewpoints.
Yeah, for me it's interesting
conflicting cultural viewpoints.
Yeah, and it's, to me it's interesting because when we read the from the E83 box set, when we read the setting book and stuff, I see that one as written from the inside, meaning it's written from Airdidom and Great
Exactly.
Kingdom, and then they talk about the barbarians up in the north and stuff like that. But if you talk about the old Flan, they might describe the Airdi as the intruders and the barbarians that came from the outside and almost defeated us and stuff. So you can have different, you can read, and that is something you can adopt one or many of these viewpoints as a base for your cultures and your ideas and stuff in your campaign. You can choose one or just ignore the whole issue, just go with the mechanics and skip the politics. So if you want to go deep into politics, you can have different sides that hate or allies with themselves, and then you can have different Flan groups seeing things different. The rovers are the conservatives of the Flan that don't want to change one bit, so to speak. They cling on to old views and they would never ever surrender. And the Tenites are the ones that kind of surrendered and realized it's nice and cozy to live here close to the enemy and trade with them and get new kind of cool techniques and start worship in ways that kind of resembles more what the enemy did, so to speak, and so on. Like when the Romans came to Britain, there were probably a lot of people in Britain who became Romans and started to be at least partially Roman, so to speak, and others in Scotland or Wales or whatever that refused to change whatsoever. You can build different types of tensions and stuff like that in your world, in your campaign as see fit for your stories, so to speak.
Also, a related tension that I love playing with. I'm gonna say, start to think of generational conflicts. I mean, how different would a viewpoint be before the Greyhawk Wars versus after? But then go back further in time. One of the elements of D&D that first drew me to it, right, was my love of these old pulp stories and these old horror films and everything. And you'll notice a recurring motif in some of these old modules would be the idea of a place that has been forgotten or lost that contains some living secret, be it an entity or be it a magic item or whatnot. And you run the risk of opening the past and having the past kill you. Which to me is the ultimate generational conflict, right? The ancient dead coming back for you. And the fact that you haven't quite shaken off history that way. So you have these dungeons which themselves are, if you will, the world's history, the world's dead history coming back to life. And the ruins of these civilizations and cultures that have fallen and fallen repeatedly, and quite often in Greyhawk, fallen through some form of sorcery or experimentation or dabbling in that which man should not know. And
that's one of the interesting things that I've done with my Flan, and said that they bury their dead in new pits, so to speak, somewhere. So they keep them, kind of try to keep their dead remains stored away, but that they can call them back as a horde to use as a weapon against the enemy. And that's one of the things that the Dark Druids, the horned ones, so to speak, it's they guard and the dead, so to speak. So the dead is one of the ultimate protections that the Flan can call on, so to speak. And there are these necropolises hidden away in different parts in my version of Greyhawk, here and there, and there are the part of the dark faith, so to speak, that are the guardians of this. And IU's is looking and trying to find them, and he find a couple of them, and he wants to find more of them, because then he can, his priests and stuff can use the undeads and as an army. And then now I have in my campaign the dark faith. So there's like a sort of competition between IU's and the dark faith, because now they used to be allies, now they're enemies, and they're trying to see who can find them first and control them as part of it. And so they're strange bedfellows in my campaign for this reason. I
just wanted to return right quick. I've noticed some conversation about this. I'm not at all denying that Gygax and others early on associated the Flan with Native Americans, but they also associated them with a bizarre, if you were to think of all the things that they were compared to at various points by Gygax, you wouldn't have a cohesive worldview unless you assume he means it's like this.
Yeah, but you can have different aspects about this. You can say that,
Yeah.
that a culture can have a religion that was like this culture. Yeah, or they could be horsemen and have horsemanship and horse worship and stuff.
Or in this region, they tend to
from another
I don't
culture.
think
So
he
to
was
speak.
looking that far
You
ahead.
pick and choose
Exactly.
aspects from the real world and put it in. I don't want to say whole hog that the Olmens are like the Aztecs or anything like that, but you can say that people that live in jungles and tropical regions get some aspects simply because of the environment and stuff like that.
I totally agree. I'd say that
Yeah.
And besides that, it's one thing. I would also say that clearly the Flan with the Druids and the Old Faith, that aspect of it, is clearly not Native American. It's like the Flan from some regions are like this, but they're also like this, and they take on the aspects of this other culture.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that basically, Mike, you pegged it exactly. Some of it was the rule of cool. It's just
Gygax's
like, man,
map is designed on North America.
yeah,
That's where he grew up, so you're damn well certain there was American Indians.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
And besides that, I mean, let's face it. I mean, this is the guy who, along with Don Kay, Boot Hill, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there are all these kind, and like I said, in the literature itself, I mean, the Picts in Robert E. Howard are far closer in some ways in the depiction of their type that to stereotypical Native Americans than they seem to me to be historical Picts.
Well, yeah.
So yeah, it's like I'm saying again, it's pop culture and pop culture.
Yeah,
particularly
but
for
a lot of the
that period
technologies and ideas and stuff were probably similar back in those days, because the what they could do were very similar. They had similar technical.
But I'm talking about how we represent them in pop culture.
Yeah,
tends to get worked through a blender.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even if you look at medieval stuff, I mean, remind me again how Excalibur is set in the Dark Ages when everyone's wearing full plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can go over,
but it works because it's cool, man. It's visually cool, and it's in keeping with the spirit of the era in which many of those romances were written.
We can go over that bad Clive Owen King Arthur movie where the Saxons have crossbows that didn't exist for 500 years.
Yeah,
so. Yeah.
But this fantasy.
Yeah, no, that'd be my point exactly. I mean, you're never going to take away the spring-loaded blade.
Well, they use
from
magic
the
that doesn't exist in the real world. So what? It's fantasy. Dragons don't exist, as far as I know, or demons, or.
Yeah, well, as the bumper sticker says, you'll ply my three-bladed, spring-loaded sword in the sorcerer blade from my cold dead hands. So,
are you ready for my question that I held off on?
Witches.
Oh boy.
Witchcraft. Rennie, or Flan? Or both. Now, I use Timothy Brannan's witches. If you ever,
which are great, yeah.
Yes.
Timothy's stuff, is great for the OSR stuff.
Right. So, what's your thoughts on both mix immaterial for Greyhawk?
I see. I always get into this weird idea of what we exactly mean by witches. If we're talking about like the fortune telling character, blah blah blah, I would say Rennie.
Yeah,
right.
I'm talking about more like and the Timothy Brannan witch that my friend Walt plays in one of my
I would place more into a Flan kind of
right, because you're collecting herbs, poultices, making it has some alchemy aspects to so
I might work in something similar with the ground based Rennie. The ones who do all the horse trading and stuff that come up in Gygax's novels. I might actually work something similar in with that.
Okay. All right. I was just curious because he has different aspects of them. He has like 5 or 6, including Fey versions, which is great. But it's been a popular addition to our old school game. That witch.
It's a really great class.
It's a
really well constructed.
Yeah, there's a huge hole. Everyone knows old school 1E has huge holes in it as far as classes go. And a lot of it. Do they have a witch in 5E? I'm sorry, I don't know.
No, although there's a third party source book that actually does.
Okay.
But I've got to say I prefer Timothy's.
Yeah, I mean, he does fantastic work. I got to get him on the show sometime. Gavin, I think would be
Yes.
good for him. Yeah.
Yes.
Try and get him on a show in an upcoming future. So, all right, that was my question. Was because you know, what direction you would go with them, and if it's a little bit of a mix. Yes, we're gonna buy in less. Exactly, Rich. All right, so open it up to questions from the audience, or Mike and Anna. Anything else? I got all mine out there. As far as what you want to talk to Les about in the final 10, 15 minutes before we do shout outs.
Uh-oh.
How do you know she's a witch? The Dragonfly version 2.
Yeah, that ties into reality, kind of.
Yep.
Yeah, but
So
I have it that witches are and warlocks are a type of a creature that has a direct relations to some sort of higher being, so to speak, or lower being for that matter. That instead of being part of an organized religion, they get powers individually from individual, that they strike a bargain with some higher or lower power, and that's. So they're part of, they're what I call a divine agent, meaning it can be paladin, clerics, druids, whatever. So they, when you do areas, it's just a different way of doing it, so to speak.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's how I kind of defined it. I haven't defined it. I need to work on the witch and warlock class for my 5e campaign. I haven't. Yeah, I had it in Pathfinder. It was perfect that way. So that, and you get different types of spells and abilities depending on whatever
your patron is.
Exactly, your patron, so to speak. So you can, it could be a demon or a powerful
and Will's
dragon
made them all up.
whatever.
Well, Henry Dvorak's made them all up for Greyhawk deities. He's
Exactly.
patrons
Yes.
of all of them. So
Yep. So now I need to figure out how to do that in 5e. So yeah,
okay,
to keep that tradition.
Ouija's witches would be best, right?
Yep.
I'm not. So the specialty priestess of Ouija or priest of Ouija is fantastic. I love the way it's set up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, like witches is like even more specialty priest than specialty priest, so to speak. They're not, because priests, I simply see clerics and paladins and stuff usually part of an organized religion. But yeah. But the witches and the warlocks are the ones that strike an individual bargain with whatever patron they have, and
Okay.
vary,
cool.
and yeah.
Yeah, Greyhawk witches are not usually the hot kind. Well, come on.
Well,
not many people play ugly females at all. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, it's one of those downfalls of us because we're disgusting.
What about
old
ugly
white men.
males?
Yes. There's ugly males all the time.
Okay, well,
there's ugly male characters all the time. But yeah, so all about
beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So, do you have any other questions out there about the Flan or anything that we discussed tonight, or something you think that Les would be a good resource for? Please shoot it out there.
Yeah. I have one more question, if Les have thought about it, because that was something that I'm starting to think a little bit about, and that is the half-elven and Flan. Because I have it more than a lot, not all, but a lot of the half-elvens in my Greyhawk campaign are half-elven, half-Flan, so to speak, or a mix that they in many generations ago. So they are like half-elven, but it's usually Flan ancestry and elven ancestry mixed to various degree. But because they rubbed shoulders for much longer than the other ones. So I have it, and that's why there's a lot of the both high folk and in the Celine Verbobonk area and stuff. There you have most of them because they live in that border culture that used to be between the Flan and the elves, and therefore they historically, and that's where they congregate or live. Simply, yeah.
You have a lot in my campaign. It's the same thing. You have some Sul, like half Sul, half elf. Fewer. The Iridians much less because, let's face it, they're a little bit. I tend to be my Iridians is a little bit skeptical about the elves because the elves can be friends with the Flan, and because the Flan, this animism, it just opens the gateway to blood sacrifice and all kinds of heathenism that our particular gods would not approve of necessarily.
Yeah, and I also have the Iridians. They came in and saw both the elves and the Flans as enemies to conquer, so to speak, and
exactly
people to subdue and stuff. And that's when the Flan and the elves really started to bond because they got a common enemy. and they had a common interest, and that's where a lot of half elves came to be. So a lot of half elves are like less than 1,000 years old in culture, so to speak. So before then it was probably less, but then the Flan and the elves really started to mingle simply because of due to similar interests. The same enemy kind of unites you.
Question out in the audience. Maddie has said, "Who's the most famous Flan?" Why don't we make it the top 5?
The 3 of them are probably going to be like liches, right?
Yeah.
Vecna,
Queen Alyssa.
Queen Alyssa. That's
Queen
Yeah.
Alyssa.
Okay, keep going.
Serac was Flan, right?
yeah, probably.
And
yeah.
Caraptus.
Yeah, correct.
4,
This,
yeah.
yeah. So it's all these old assholes apart from
Tang the
Alyssa.
Horrific is not correct.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a lot of the worst of the Flan of old, or the best, so to speak. But history tend to favor the extremes in the worst and the best, are the ones that survive in history, so to speak. The dull in betweens don't get mentioned much in history afterwards.
So there's no Flan that are roaming around in 570 or 598, 576 or 598 that you know about that are considered like legendary characters in the campaign?
Not that much. They're not that have reached that level, I think. I was thinking, what are there any late wizards like the Circle of Eight or any of these kind of that are Flan?
No, you had Rari, who's back Loonish, and you had Alamazad, who's back Loonish. I don't know of any Flans.
Yeah. So they tend to, but it kind of makes sense. They were delegated to second place in
Nystel is there. Gary says Nystel is.
Okay.
Nystel is a famous pure Flan. Okay.
Yep.
Well, awesome.
Okay.
Top 8 favorite
Just
circle wizards.
Yep.
Last thing to throw out, I'd mention too, Anna, because I know this is something dear to you. They are that the descendants of the Flan in my campaign tend to be, along with the elves, those most likely to interact in a reverential way, shall we say, to fey creatures.
Yeah.
Because again, I mean, I think about, again, even in Gygax's the short stories that were collected for Gore, there are the Pukons, who are these great, believe it or not, lawful good, I think, is basically in alignment fey, who basically have a grove of sacred mushrooms that they protect, right?
Nice.
And you don't want to steal their mushrooms because they'll, that's theft, and they're good, and they'll put you to death, man.
Yeah. And I have that also, because that means that they have shared the environment with the elves and stuff for a long time. That's why you have gods and like Elana, for instance. I have that as an elven Flan crossover, so to speak. That is both elven and Flan, and especially in the half elven community, it's one of these big. So yeah,
the two forces that my Flan and half elves seem to have, particularly the Flan, because they've obviously wandered, would be some of the old forces of the land, which would include the Fae, and it would also include in my campaign, because again, I love what Kuntz did. And I love Jason's idea of Cthulhu Hawk. Basically, Eldritch abominations, man.
Yeah.
These things that were in the Flaness and on Oath before man was there. And that sleep. Some of them slumber, and some of them.
Yeah, I like that idea too. That there is like the and the aboleth. I have the aboleth.
Oh yeah, I love
that
aboleths.
Was long before there were primates or humans or anything like that. Meaning they've been around the bend more than once before, and had civilization that is way older, and maybe even some of we don't know about beholders, and others might have been around for a long time, or they might be a new invention. So, but you can have certain creatures that I have dragons that I have been around for way longer than humanity, and then some dragons have been shaped and adopted humanity, almost like the good dragons. They and the evil ones, so the chromatic have as pets and allies, and the chromatic ones are the sworn enemy about the civilized creatures. So
there's also the idea that one of the things I love about that is it allows me to work in one of my favorite pulp tropes, where in say the Cairn portions of the Cairn Hills, or maybe going further down again, the Drakensgrubs, you might have these lost communities of Sul and Iridian outcasts and Flan outcasts retreated into the mountains, and over the generations have, say, bred with the various creatures that live there, and created their own horrible, how can I put this, communities where the family trees have very few branches.
Exactly, and there you have where there is like a menagerie in the monster manual that you kind of come from stuff like that. Yeah.
So doesn't that kind of, there's a lot of mentions of that. What about I-1? Isn't that happening in I-1? Or am I wrong on that? There's like
where there's, you mean the I-Tyrant?
No,
I-1.
Forgotten City or whatever it is.
Oh yeah. There's certainly elements of that within within there, and that's again that ties into. I mean, if that whole
mongrel men. Thank you, Rich. Sorry.
Yeah, you have mongrel men, but also I was thinking more along the lines of, we were speaking of. One of Clark Ashton Smith's stories has this degenerate, like it's a degenerate. Again, it's an offshoot. It's similar to a Neanderthal, but not.
Okay.
And it has it's something similar to a caveman, except they have a completely wrong number of fingers and toes. And the thing is that they're very, in other words, they never really got the chance. They were just shoved off. And this is what I love working in creatures like that, where it's like, a dead end evolutionary offshoot that somehow has lingered there, and the outcasts come upon them and mix with them and do what they do, and the next thing you know, you've got giants hanging out with them, and you've got more horrible stuff going on. Just add a death cult and you've got a party, man.
And I like it to have the base is like biological evolution, and then you have planar influences, and you have all sorts of other magical things that add in and speed up and make the evolution go in all sorts of weird ways in a fantasy world. So to speak.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, full enough, I'm sure.
So, one last thing, and before we go into shout outs, Antiquitous just put down the Elder Elemental Gods, the Flan God, in this Cannon Fire article he had just linked. Is that true?
I have it. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go on.
I was going to say I have it, but I haven't figured out exactly in what way. I've had several theories and stuff. So when I dive
whoever that is,
deep down into it, in my campaign, it will have some sort of Flan connection. I'm pretty sure, but there are several kind of cool things like umbral dragons, and then there's several other high candidates, so to speak. I haven't decided yet.
Yeah, because specifically, I remember Ed Greenwood in his last discussion talked about how they just didn't want to make it similar or exact or whatever, and they made some changes, and so. Pre-human.
Yeah, the thing with me is I love the idea of the elemental princes or
Ogremok and all those. Yeah,
exactly. So that would come in again with my campaign simply because these are natural forces that the Flan would be drawn towards. Also, obviously, basically, it would be primarily the Baklunish and some Flan who would worship those kinds of entities. But I say the Baklunish because, at least in my campaign, but the Baklunish culture tends to have a lot of elementalists.
Yeah, but in my campaign, it also becomes, since now the humanoids are taking over, so it's like something with Flan roots that now get humanoid
mutates, exactly,
and it becomes a Flan humanoid kind of mix.
Kind of cultural or mimetic mutation.
That's where I have the Earth Dragon, so to speak. It might have some ancient roots that then the Flan took over it and worshipped it, nurtured it, and then the Flan disappeared and the humanoids came in. And first the kind of Sual Iridian from the Keolan came in for a little bit, but they probably didn't ignored it. And then the humanoids came in and swarmed over it and probably embraced it in some ways, and now it becomes like a Flan humanoid thing.
Well, certainly with Turish Mac if you incorporate Turish Mac, then that would be one of the things that comes up. Would be the idea that he revives the cult of the
and it's so cool because then you develop the new kind of strain that goes in some other direction that you can kind of work with. And
so sitting risk, last question we'll take. What's your favorite interesting or quirky aspect of the Flan? Do you have one there, Les, you think of?
Yes, I do actually, which is that they are known to, when they travel through certain forests, they make an offering when they have a dinner as they're traveling, they always make an offering to the spirits of the forest. And the reason they don't is, for example, some of my characters were traveling through the gnarly and they learned to make an offering after this. They woke up and one of my girlfriends actually, 2 goblin sidekicks were buried in acorns. Basically that, and she had a vision of a bear that came to her wearing the robes of a professor from Clarkburg, who asked her, she was asking it, "Are you here?" Or what? Who are you? Well, who are you? No, I'm asked you. Well, I'm asking you. Why are you here? Why is anyone here? So this Fae basically screwed with them.
Right.
And that was a mild example. They were just doing it because they were curious. But that would be one of the things, is you never want to piss off the spirits of the local spirits. So whenever the Flan are out and they suspect that there are nature spirits near, and sometimes even just as a matter of custom, they always leave food and drink.
Cool. Very interesting.
Nice.
I don't know if that's funny, but the results can be funny.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great
ways to torment the players for not making an offering.
Very cool. So hopefully this was pretty deep tonight. So hopefully you all enjoyed this discussion on getting into some of the Flan and the aspects of it. Les, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about.
Hey man, I had a great time, and I hope you guys
enjoyed
it.
Les is going to be back in a couple of days, though.
Whoa!
Yeah,
that's true.
That's true. Playing the mercenary from the Wild Coast, Gerard Duff, who's got a secret, which relates to one of the... Yes, he thinks he has a secret, or maybe no one will care. I don't know. But I try to put in a lot of these little twists and ties into the 20 competitors in the Grand Melee. So as Les will be playing that character. Oh, thanks, Casey. Yes. Well, it's a little bit of a joke. It's a little bit of a joke on Jimmy Duffy. I figured from Praetor's Rejects, they made Gerard Duff. So there you go. So and he's kind of balding too, like Jimmy is. A little bit in the picture, but So, but thank you. All right, let's do some shout outs. So we'll start with Mike. What's going on, Mike?
Well, we got the virtual Greyhawk Con now on the horizon.
Yes.
We'll be in a game with Icarus, doing some Backaloonish fun.
Excellent.
I can't wait to see Rich in action. And everyone else in the group. So
those games are so much fun.
I'll be sure to give you all a report of that. Other than that, I'm looking forward to this melee and all the bells and whistles that go with it.
Well, that's good, Mike. And note, Rich, I'll get with you. I mean, you and Mike will get together. Mike will be missing a Wednesday night coming up, either next Wednesday or the Wednesday after. He'll let me know, due to Rich having to change something. Not a big deal. We'll get through it. We'll definitely get through that. So, but good to hear that you're going and doing that. I want to put one other thing out. It's kind of a downer. If you were part of Gitano's Sunday game, he had to cancel it. Gitano's in the hospital.
Oh man!
All right. So yeah. So
I wish him a speedy recovery.
Yeah. Hopefully. Cool. Very cool, Ranger. Good. Yeah. Just wanted to know that that's what happened. So Gitano is. I talked to him via Discord today. Not for long. Yeah. Gitano kind of is in. He had an issue and he's in the hospital. So hopefully he gets better soon. And hopefully maybe he gets out right away. But he's that's what happened there. So just want to let everyone know. Give him some well wishes and thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go over that. I know that the Zeef game especially has an opening, so I'm going to go over that shortly. So Anna, what's going on?
Two things. First, seminar prep going on, and I have some good news to tell. That there is someone that I want to cooperate with, so that will be. I was hoping to get some confirmation. At least I have half a confirmation, so we can talk about it. And then there will be more on my geographical development and backstory on the planet on Earth, and there will be more news on upcoming projects and stuff. So please come on Friday for my seminar. And then I'm doing a game prep for the 19th session of my Shieldlands campaign, and we are gearing up for Need Fest. There will be a Flan Old Faith Druidic Need Fest in the Dragonhide Caves.
Nice.
So I'm planning that. So that ties in really well with this. So I've been knee deep into planning what a Druidic Old Faith Need festival could be, so to speak. So that will be a lot of fun. So there will be a dance with the horned ones. There will be the ritual killing of an Iusian priest, and there will be a whole bunch of other cool stuff that will be there, so to speak. So drinking all sorts
fun for the whole family.
Exactly, and drinking all concoctions and then dance under the stars and do all sorts of it will be a Need festival. We will see if it will be next session, or depends. They have a day's journey to go there, so something might go haywire on the way. So it might be 2 sessions before we get there. But soon I'm planning it, so to speak. So I think that could be a lot of fun.
Thank you for the raid, GM workshop. Please, everyone, go over and give. I'm linking it. A follow for them as well, and feel free to sign up for the giveaways here. Anna's stream is going to be Friday night, 6 p.m. Eastern time, and Troller Games will be raiding into us on day 1 of GreyhawkCon. Listen to me, geez, I almost said GaryCon. Then we will be raiding into Blue Box from there, and that'll be the main. That'll be their really cool event that they have.
Oh, you unplugged.
I did it again.
Yes, you did it again.
So, everyone, please sign up for the drawing. We're going to do a couple giveaways here. So, Anna will be. You haven't sent me anything in Dropbox yet, right, Anna?
No, not yet.
Okay.
You know me. We'll come 2 hours before.
Well, that's why I have off to that tomorrow and Friday from work, so I'm ready to go.
So before you start, you have to dump it in there. But we can also have this set up that I can show something if we come up with it during the show too. So we can kind of.
I have enough wireless, guys, and this works, so I just got to stop knocking it out. So, but appreciate everyone coming in from 2 raids tonight for Blue Box and GM's Workshop. Thank you. So, Les, what you got going on?
Well, let's see. As Mateus just mentioned, I'll be on the talk show the podcast that he and my mind went blank. Wiley Hobbit host.
Yep.
I'll be on their show coming up on Monday, October 25th, discussing Appendix N and ways to incorporate ideas from Appendix N into your campaigns, your ideas.
That's a great topic.
Let's see. This weekend, I'll be doing Friday night. Will be a 5th edition game that I'm running called the Runaway Goblin Bride. Which is full up, but again, with both my games, if anyone's interested, put your name on the waiting list because you never know if someone is going to drop out. Which involves the characters on in a most peculiar courtship and escort mission. Then Saturday, I'm doing a 1st edition game called the Tomb of Tazbrev Teneb, which ties in a lot of material that some material we covered earlier tonight.
What time is that game?
That game is at, I believe, noon Central.
Yeah, I got it right here, and that's full as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like I said, if someone wants to put their name on the waiting list, in case somebody does drop out at the last minute, which tends to happen. Then, of course, I'll be participating in the melee on Saturday night.
Yes, Grand Melee of Altamira.
And Sunday, I'm in Alan Grohe's Drow game.
Yes, Treachery in Aralhai Sinlu, which starts at noon on East, and from that he'll be Alan's in the Ask the Experts that final at night right here. So, and
I've been working on in tandem with the 2 adventures that I'm running. I've been working on some more articles for the Oath Journal and possibly Cannon Fire. So.
So the question for Gitano's canceled game on Sunday: On the Road to Saltmarsh has 1 open seat, and Icarus's Last Splash on Sunday has 3 open seats, and they both go off early. One's at noon Central, 1 Eastern. The other one is at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 Central. So that's it. If you want to pick up something else from Gitano's game that had to go because of his being hospitalized. So just wanted to show you that. So Well, thank you all. Let me do some quick shout outs here. So note, we still have some games with opening slots. But, the BK Tourney Table 1 is filled finally. And let me talk about BK Tourney. Table 2 has 1 seat left for Casey Brown's tournament. That's Saturday at noon Eastern. A couple Greyhawk Reborns have been shuffling of tickets around, so you always take a look. The Greyhawk Reborns have some open seats here and there. We also have Zarathon's Iron Shen Tufui, which is Luke Ayax's adventure he wrote, has 2 seats left still. Once again, we still are having trouble getting this 4 a.m. Elmshire Murder out of Belgium filled up. That's been tough. We got a lot. We're getting seats now for our men's games in New Zealand set. So we have a fair amount of things filled up. It says there's a seat open for Steven Chenault's game, which is crazy. Someone may have had to drop. But the owner of Troller Games event, that looks like there's an open spot. It looks like there's 1 seat open for Dickrus's Living Greyhawk Dryland as well as Zeef game. So there is some seats here and there still open. Just wanted to put that out there. Thank you everyone for we had. It's a shame with Gitano's game. There's all pre-mades, Yeah, so it's Dwayne's game, by the way. This one on the road to Saltmarsh. Dwayne Hewitt, who has 1 seat open. So yeah, isn't that great though? Rob, everything's getting filled. I mean, it's really going pretty well here as far as filled. I've been trying to push. My Swedish friends are both working. Rethix and Skagath couldn't get into Orinir's game. I'm really trying. Yes, Elmshire Murder is the Belgium one. Yes, and that's Orinir. Naz, I know you're in the UK, and that's the one I tried to direct you to, but it may I don't know if it's going to conflict with Casey. I don't think it does, but that would be whatever time it is for you. It's Tom Van de Veen. If you want me to help contact him via you, and you want to sign up for that, see if it's going to go off, I will do that for you when I get off. So, link to the con again. So here we go. It's going to be on this. It's going to be on the shout out right here. There we go. At the bottom of that shout out. Of course, now it doesn't pop. There we go. There it is. Tabletop events. Yes, there are some seats open still here and there.
And always put yourself on a waiting list. Yes. You never know.
Awesome, Naz. I'm going to tell him. I will send him a message. And if you have him, Naz, he's in Cannon Fire Discord if you need to find him, but it's Oronir, Oronir. So anyone with any other questions about the con, it's looking pretty good, for everything. I'm excited. I really appreciate the support. It's going to be a fun time. I really think that this year it's come together over last year. It was it was a challenge getting it together last year, and we know a little bit more. We know a little bit more what we're doing now. So it's our official beverage. I don't know. I'm trying not to drink during it. So because if I start drinking, it'd be trouble.
Non-alcoholic beverage.
Yep. Yeah. My seltzer water there. So.
No special goblin brews.
Then we have seltzer water.
You have that, man, yep. Because we got, it's going to be a fun time. So some events real quick for my shout outs. You got Anna Meyer's campaign maps. That's these are all my channel. Friday night, 6 p.m. Eastern. That'll be great. I have 4 events on my channel. The second one is the Ever Mysterious Tim. Look at the time frame, please. 7 a.m. Eastern. So it's 6 a.m. Central. That starts off. Carlos is playing. Anna, you're in that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you're in that. So it'll be some fun people in that. Yep. So that'll be a good one as well. Yes. Then we have my main event at the Grand Melee of Altamira. We have a lot. Oh my gosh! Careful, Cantrip! Another raid!
Woohoo!
Awesome. Welcome.
Really appreciate it, Careful Cantrip. Good to see you. we're talking about our con, virtual Greyhawk con, as we're finishing up our show here. Thank you so very much for coming in. Really appreciate the. I know it's a love raid. We don't want any of those hate raids. I've been lucky and blessed, but I know a lot of friends have gotten obliterated by those, and it really sucks. But thank you so very much for all of you coming in, saying hello. We got a giveaway coming up very, very shortly. I'm doing two gift certificates. We're doing one for Castle Entertainment, great modules, and one for Troller Games. So you got your opportunity to win one of two $25 gift certificates very shortly. Guests here. You got Gary Julian. Oh, thanks, George. Thank you for doing that. Really appreciate it, George. Gary Julian playing the Black Knight. Mike Disney playing Vargrin the Unmerciful. You got Stella playing Lady Israel again. NPC voices, you got him playing Brim, a lot of great characters from, and you got some new characters in this, and everyone's like, how are you going to handle 20 characters? Very carefully, you'll see. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a little chaotic, but I'm doing my best for it. And for the new people who came in, 1 second here as I go back to this, and just to show the level of detail that we handle here, and here is the arena, all done by Infinite Dimensions and my friend Bill the Master Crafter on my table. We are cranking it up there. It's a 3D print. This took months to do. Here's the entire table set up, city and Free City of Altamir in the background, and the arena here. We are really excited about using this and having some really cool combat in this coming up. And we've got downtown Altamira all done there, very nicely done, with Hoops Fruit Market back here in the way back. That's where the kumquats are sold. There you go. So we have it all covered. All right, we'll get through this, get through all the shout outs here, and then we are going. Oh, look at that. We almost have a second hype train. Now we do. 2 hype trains a night in a talk show is always awesome. So sit tight here as we're going to hit this up, and we're going to I know Logism said no magic with grinds a trick or two. Yes, if you get caught cheating, you're going to get in trouble. Just note that. Get caught cheating with potions or casting spells, you're going to get in trouble. Just note that you don't want to get caught. And if you're going to think you're going to sneak something by 18th level wizards and priests, then have at it. So yes. Don't get caught. Absolutely. Level 3 hype train already. My gosh. Second time, second one. All right. So let's, 1 second here. Good night. What? Give me 5. All right. Shut the door, please. That's my son. So thank you very much, everyone. Let's do the giveaways here, as we got a whole bunch of new people coming in, and no cheat. Absolutely. Vargan's even saying no cheating to you, Casey, for Garn. So last call. If you want an exclamation point drawing, you want to sign up for one of the 2 giveaways. First person who wins gets their choice. They want the CSL gift certificate, which you can get some unbelievable adventures, like if you want like Horror in the Hools by yours truly and Carlos, or the 9, or Caverick's Cove, you can get one of like 25 different adventures, all Ostrac, old school, awesome stuff. And then everyone knows Troller Games. Troller Games is a great sponsor of our channel, and guess what? They are super drawing, exclamation point drawing. Okay, yeah, there you go. Troller Games is stepping up for this con. Our 3 main sponsors, by the way, Reaper Miniatures, doing great things. I got some great giveaways from them. Frog God Games as well. Every highlight stream has at least 1 gift certificate giveaway. Every single one. Plus, we're going to do some in the Discords as well. Even the Discords are going to get some giveaways. Balfrin's got that covered. He's going to take care of that during the con. This is a talk show where I do 1E, 2E old school when I play, and normally I play on Thursday nights, Foo Face Killer, but tomorrow night I don't have a game because I got a back to school night with my kids, but the con is all editions. Every edition, 1E, 2E, 3E, Pathfinder, 5E, Castles and Crusades, it's all editions. So yeah, I got both, talk show and game. Troller Games is giving away 10 $25 gift certificates during the entire con. All right, plus something special, which I'm not going to talk about until the grand melee. and it has to do with a legend of D&D and a found module that they didn't realize they had that they're going to start giving away. Okay, the top 4 finishers of the Grand Melee are going to get it, along with 6 viewers. That's in addition to all the other giveaways. All right. So if you finish in the final 4, you automatically get. I'm not going to give away. It's a Legend of the Games adventure that they have found. They like, we didn't realize we had this. Yes. So it's just coming out. I'm not going to talk about it again until Saturday night. Yeah, that way I'll make you all come on. And that's in addition to all the other ones. So
man.
Plus, where do you see what they give to every single person at the con? Remember they gave a great pack last year? They got something really nice for everyone who signed up for Virtual Greyhawk Con. It's a mega download coming for you as well. So just note, Troller Games has really stepped up. So, alrighty. Yes. Here we go. Careful Cantrip, thank you so very much for the raid. I really appreciate you doing that. That was really kind of you. Gonna close it out. Anyone have any other questions? What a great show tonight. Les, thanks. We're gonna raid into.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, when we're done, we're gonna raid into Stella Luna. Stella, it has a stream during GreyhawkCon. It's Saturday, and it's Village of Hamlet in 5e, her game. So and plus she's in my Grand Melee as well, playing Lady Isarel. So we'll go into her. She's doing Ghost of Saltmarsh right now with her crew. So here we go. Gonna close this out. I've said that 6 times. My bad. Like I said, I was all over the place tonight. Everyone, you gotta. Talking to myself. Here we go. Closing out the giveaway. Last call. All right. First winner, you get your choice of what to. And thank you for that second. Oh, thanks, Galger. I try. The winner is Obsidian Risk. First winner, Obsidian. Do you want the CSL or the Troller Games gift certificate? Let me know. Obsidian, which one you want? I know Obsidian's on. I saw him. Let me just check, make sure he's... Yep, he's still on. Obsidian. Sweet. Which one do you want? Which one you want? You want CSL or the Troller Games? You let me know. Second winner is... It's a casualty. It's a casualty.
All
Yep.
right.
All right, so Obsidian, you get the Troller Games. It's a casualty. You get the CSL Entertainment, and I will get in touch with both of you and get those out. And we have, I'm going to say, in giveaways for GreyhawkCon, and I'm not lying, we have over $1,000 in value of giveaways during GreyhawkCon, at least.
Whoa.
Okay, yes, between all of our sponsors, absolutely. It's well over $1,000 of goodies for everyone participating and watching, and you never win, Tim. It's rigged. You can get whatever you want, though, Tim. You come here all the time, so listen to that. Thank you, everyone.
There will be a giveaway on my stream too.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not bad for a $5 ticket. I mean, absolutely. Yep. All the great things you can win or participate in and have fun with. So I will get those out to you both, and let's set up the raid now. And what a great show tonight. Thank you all. And let me hit the right button. All right. Absolutely, Marquesa. I agree 100%. The community is ever growing. If you want to become part of the community, here's 2 Discords: Virtual GreyhawkCon Discord and Cannon Fire Discord, and also Greyhawk Online Discord. You can get that through their site. All right, raid. Let me set the raid up. Want to say thank you once again to Les, Anna, and Mike for participating, and also to GM Workshop, Careful Cantrip, and of course Blue Box for raiding in. 82 going in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See you in a couple days. 8 a.m. Mike Disney stream starts off Virtual GreyhawkCon. See you soon. Awesome.
All right.
Get a little behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, 82. That's good. Yeah.
I'll say. Finish this up. Close this out.
Lots of awesome stuff, Les. I love it. It was
Oh,